Yuli embraces the power of the Golem to save her brother, but will it overwhelm her before she takes full control? We're going to talk about it in the conclusion of Edenfrost in issue number 4 from Mad Cave Studios. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Edenfrost number 4 from Mad Cave Studios. This issue concludes the heartfelt fantasy when Yuli accepts the power of the Golem to destroy her attackers. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated. And stay tuned to the end for the final score. Let's talk about the credits. Edenfrost number 4 is written by Amit Tischler. Art, colors, and the main cover art are all done by Bruno Frenda, and the letters are produced by Taylor Esposito. Previously in issue number 3, Alex and Yuli were trapped in the cabin and they were surrounded by soldiers and guards. During the shootout and fight, Yuli lost her brother in the melee, and the amulet that Alex carries, which gives him the power of the Golem, called out to her. She reached out to it, grabbed it, and she transformed into this large, monstrous sort of wolf creature composed of the elements of nature like soil and trees and rocks. Now in Edenfrost number 4, we see what the power of the Golem can do in Yuli's hands. But before that happens, we get a brief flashback to Alex when he was helping his mother and his father help a wounded soldier who had been who found his way back into the village, and they recognized that war is coming and that he was powerless to stop it. Alex snaps out of his flashback after he sort of comes back to consciousness during the attack back at the cabin, and he sees Yuli now in this monstrous wolf form just tearing through the soldiers that had attacked him in the cabin. And it's pretty impressive. She's about probably 20 feet tall from paw to shoulder in this large wolf creature with glowing red eyes. The soldiers are shooting at it. They're throwing rocks at it. They're doing everything they can to stop it, but this monster is tearing through them like a hot knife through butter, if you will. Boris wakes up underneath the rubble of the cabin. He's wounded but still alive, and he can't believe what he sees. Alex helps Boris up. They try to get away. Boris tries to tell them to get away, but Alex is like, no, that's my sister in there. I know the power of the Golem is going to sap her strength and possibly kill her. I've got to talk her down. So Alex runs over to the wolf, tries to convince her, Yuli, inside this monstrous creature, that she has to let it go. It's going to consume her fully if she doesn't stop. But the wolf just smacks him away. Eventually, one of the commanders from the attacking soldiers sees what's going on, orders his soldiers to keep shooting at it while he picks up a grenade and throws it at Yuli inside this wolf form. The wolf sees what's happening, sees that the grenade is being tossed in Alex's direction, and the wolf jumps at the grenade and catches it in its jaws, blowing it in half, basically, and destroying it. Alex runs over to the rubble of what the wolf creature used to be, finds that Yuli's inside but awake, and she's okay, but very weak and very detached. The commander of the soldiers picks up a gun, tries, and then makes ready, and he's going to shoot the kids. But at the last minute, Alex grabs the amulet that generates the golem power and produces or metamorphoses, generates, or I'm not even sure what the word is, a giant ice hand that reaches up, grabs the soldier, and crushes him. And so that's the end of the conflict, but not the end of the story. Boris helps the kids get to horses and supplies, recognizing all the soldiers are dead. The only thing they can do is to try and get to Kiev, where they have extended family, and potentially find safety. Boris gives them a map and also an invitation to Alex and Yuli to say, you have great power. You can fight for Ukraine if you ever decide to go that far. Please come reach out to me, and we would love to have you in our army because your power can do a lot of good for our country and for our people. Alex and Yuli ride off, and during that, well, I won't call it an epilogue, but basically it is an epilogue. The two of them talk about their power, what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, their hopes for the country and for the future, and then they eventually find their way to a road that leads into Kiev, but they see as they arrive from the hillside that a large caravan of soldiers are already heading towards Kiev, sort of speaking about the story in itself, but there's more context to that, which we'll get to in a minute. And that's how the issue ends. To provide some cultural context, this story, very well done and very much a fantasy story, is clearly presenting a message related to the current conflict that's happening right now between Ukraine and Russia. It doesn't necessarily pick one side or the other, which is probably a better way to approach it. And it doesn't necessarily say a message of this group is bad versus that group is good, or this person or this ethnicity or country is wrong, or this other ethnicity or country is right. What it's doing is basically espousing a message of peace, that Yuli and Alex, seeing the conflicts and the wars that are happening all around them, even though it's set in a completely different time period, are hoping that through their travels and possibly through the power that they possess, that they can find everybody to come together in a spirit of peace and coexistence and harmony, which is a much better message to portray, but using potentially the current conflict between Ukraine and Russia as a contextual touchstone to make the story a little bit more relevant. What do we like about Edenfrost number 4? The ending felt big in the sense that you have this cataclysmic battle between Yuli accepting the power of the Golem, at least temporarily anyway, and the soldiers, and the fact that she potentially could be losing control of her mind and herself within the beast's body. And it really makes for a layered, dramatic way to end the tale, especially because that sort of puts her on a different level as her brother, because she apparently is able to control the Golem a lot longer than he ever could. And that also creates a new dynamic between brother and sister, because Yuli seems to have known, or at least had an inkling about the power, and it's conceivable that the power is always meant for her instead of Alex. And so that slightly changes their dynamic. Plus, the open-ended ending gives you a sense that there are more adventures to come. So generally speaking, a good, solid ending for a good, solid, interesting fantasy tale. What didn't we like about Edenfrost number 4? The ending regarding Alex and Yuli fighting against the soldiers happens almost at the midway point, a little bit past the midway point. So there's a lot of space at the end that's left for their travel through the woods, their pontifications about what they feel about the conflict between Ukraine and Russia at that time, which echoes the conflict between Ukraine and Russia currently. And so the ending maybe takes up, it's not that the message isn't important, but it takes up a lot of space in the comic. And you get the impression that the final battle and some kind of resolution, there could have been more developed there. It's a story choice. It just felt like maybe the final conflict, or the way the conflict was resolved, came up a little too short. And so that's not to say you don't get your money's worth, but it felt like maybe it happened too fast, or that there could have been something a little bit more developed between, for example, between Bruno and the commander, some kind of fight there, or some way to tie in to at least give some readers the background of how Yuli and Alex came about this amulet that gives them the power, and give them more context and details in the background, something to fill it in. It just felt like the final fight cut short a little bit too quickly, and the epilogue takes up a little bit too much space. Let's talk about the art. Bruno Frenda's art in this issue is fantastic. I mean, this is high quality, highly detailed, gorgeously rendered, beautiful looking art. I mean, very impressive for somebody who's doing both the pencils and inks and also the coloring and the cover. I mean, visually speaking, this is a gorgeous looking comic. There's a little bit of cartoonishness in the way the characters are presented that's slightly on the manga side of things, because their heads are very round, the eyes are very big and very expressive. That's not a problem, just kind of giving you a sense of the style you're in for. But the level of detail, especially in the colors, is dramatically impressive. So great job on the art all the way around. Final thoughts on Edenfrost number 4 from Mad Cave Studios. Solid ending, good character development. The introduction of Yuli as this sort of giant wolf-like golem monster is visually impressive as well as story-wise dramatically impressive, and that goes a long ways towards giving you an appreciation for these kids and what they're going through, and also the potential for where they could go next. On the downside, the final conflict feels like it ended a little too quickly, and so there's a lot of room at the end for the epilogue to talk about their feelings and where they see the world is going, which is good, but it felt like the final conflict got shortchanged a little bit. Therefore, we're going to give Edenfrost number 4 from Mad Cave Studios an 8.8 out of 10. What do you think about fantasy stories, especially fantasy stories that take place within a historical context? Do you like that sort of thing, or do you prefer your fantasy to be completely removed from all familiar reality? Let us know in the comment section. And if you like comic reviews just like this one, please stay tuned through the outro.